For NYUpSyracuse.com, this is Matt Parrino, joined by Ryan Talbot. The NFL Draft 2019 edition is, a couple weeks away here. We're moving right along as we preview some of the prospects that could be on the table for the Bills at number 9 in this draft. Next up, tight end TJ Hockenson out of Iowa, a very intriguing prospect for the Bills. Ryan, first thoughts, what's your overall take on Hockenson and that fit for the Bills, specifically at the number 9 spot?
Hockenson is one of my favorite players in the draft, so I think that the Bills would be thrilled if they could land him. I think he would be a very good fit in this offense. He doesn't have the blazing speed. He ran something like a 4.7 40 at the combine, but he doesn't need, I guess what I've seen enough of his film that he can get away from defenders with the ball in his hands. He almost has deceptive speed, or he can really get to that next gear when he has the ball in his hands. So he may not be as fast as Noah Fant, his teammate, or some of these other tight ends in this draft class, but he's an all-around player. He has sure hands. He can create that separation after he has the ball in his hands, create those yards after catch. And to boot, he's one of these rare prospects at tight end that is actually a great blocker right now. So he can come in from day one, and he's not going to be a liability on the field if he has to stay back and block, alongside that new revamped offensive line. If he has to help create lanes or holes for LaShawn McCoy and Frank Gore, he can literally do it all. So this is a guy that if you want to get Josh Allen a best friend that he can, develop with over the next 4 or 5 years, it just makes the most sense in the world to me.
Definitely, and, a lot of comparisons being made to Rob Gronkowski just from the perspective of he can make plays in the passing game at all levels of the field. And also, that blocking ability is so important. You look at all the highlight tapes and all of the, runs that the New England Patriots have gone on. And, Rob Gronkowski has just as many big blocks as he does big plays in the passing game. And that's a unique ability. And for an offense like the Bills have had over the course of the last few years, specifically last year, that really struggled in both areas, passing and running. Adding a guy like TJ Hockenson, I think, kind of checks 2 boxes right away. But you look at some of the other young quarterbacks in the league and some of the success that they're having, a Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, a Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco, and look at the tight ends. Obviously they're from Iowa as well in Zach Ertz and George Kittle, but those are nice pieces in an offense for a young quarterback, as a reliable option in the passing game. And listen, Brandon Beane's gone out. He's really addressed the wide receiver position. They brought in a lot of offensive linemen to try to revamp this running game. So I think that it does make a lot of sense if you're going to go for a weapon, quote unquote, early in this draft, to go for a guy like TJ Hockenson.
Yeah, and I'll throw in Travis Kelce with Kansas City as well as Patrick Mahomes in terms of a guy that has made life easier for a young quarterback. And you also want to look at the draft board and look at the other options out there. Noah Fant, far from a guarantee that he'd be there in round 2. Irv Smith Jr., same thing. So if you are set on getting a tight end prospect for Josh Allen in this year's draft, it almost has to come in round 1, or they have to trade back into round 1. Far from a guarantee that you're going to get one of the big 3 at number 40. And I'm not advocating that they have to go tight end at number 9, or if they trade back, whatever the case may be. But, this is a year where there's 3 intriguing options, especially at the top of the tight end draft class. And it would be really good for Josh Allen's development, in my opinion, if they could land one of those 3. Now, there are other guys in this draft. There's a guy like Dawson Knox, who I'm pretty high on. I like him a lot, too. But there's just such a big gap between these top 3 tight ends. So if the Bills could land Hockenson, which in my opinion, he's number 1, a clear-cut number 1, and there's a pretty good gap between him and Fant for 1 and 2, in my opinion. I just think that just would help Josh Allen's development. I think it would help the offense.
Unless you have Hockenson as a can't-miss home run, 100% is going to blow your doors off in the first 3 years, I would strongly consider trading down. I mean, we've both been proponents of it at times in the lead up to this draft. But then if you could play how this draft is playing out early on, the first few picks, trade down a few slots, and then potentially still pick him up, or a Jonah Williams or an Ed Oliver or even a Noah Fant, if that ends up being the case, and we'll talk more about him later on. I think that's when you're maximizing the value. And, for Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, they put a lot of value on this position, I believe. Sean McDermott spoke at the owners' meetings about what it was like in Carolina, having a reliable guy like Greg Olsen when it's 3rd and 5 and you need those yards, and you could tell Cam Newton to get the ball to Greg Olsen. That's what TJ Hockenson would be for this team. Guys, pardon my voice. I've been a little bit under the weather the last couple of days. I appreciate, as does Ryan, you tuning in to check out our podcast here. For all your Buffalo Bills content, make sure you keep it locked on NYUp, Syracuse.com, and we'll be back with another one soon.